Our next moderator is all about sustainability. He's a senior director at the comms agency Think Parallax. He's the host of the podcast Inspiring Perspectives, and he is the creator of the training technology, training tool, the School of Understanding, all of which are centered around sustainability. Let's give a warm welcome to Derek Sabori, everybody.
Thank you, Jordan. Good morning, everyone. Hey, we've got a great panel today. I'm going to call the team up here. We've got a fun talk, though. It's an epic panel. These are innovators disrupting the status quo with new materials in familiar settings and applications. So I'm going to welcome the panel up to the stage. Let's welcome Gary Benchagib, co-founder of Sungai Watch. David Stover, co-founder and CEO of Bureo. James Merrill, co-founder and CEO at Stoked Plastics and Apollos. And Chase Common, co-founder and CEO of STEMS, formerly known as ESG Brands. So thanks to each of you guys for being here. We've got some questions lined up, and I know we're going to have a great conversation. But because this is a film festival, we've got a few short videos that are going to help us introduce our panel so that you all can get to know them a little bit and learn more about their innovations. So Gary, where's Gary? I want to start with you, because you win the award for coming the furthest to come and be with us. At home, you're protecting rivers, starting in Indonesia, and transforming river plastic into furniture. So we're going to dive in and hear a little bit about that. And you recently exhibited that furniture in Paris, is that right? So let's take a look at what you're doing in Bali with Sungai Watch.
It was 15 years ago that we cleaned up this beach for the first time, and we would come here every weekend, pick up trash, hand it over to a local organization here that recycles plastics. But cleaning beaches is not the solution. We ended up learning that most of the plastics in the ocean actually comes from rivers, and so we completely changed our approach. 4 years ago, we officially started Sungai Watch to stop plastics from going into the ocean by cleaning rivers. We now install simple floating barriers that stops the plastics from reaching the ocean, but also working upstream of our barriers, working with communities, working on education, raising awareness, and using data as a tool to understand ways to improve waste management infrastructure. And although we're cleaning up beaches, rivers, mangroves, and coastlines every day, we're spending so much more time upstream. Hey!
Ombak besar?
Ya,
Ikut. Terus kemana sampahnya?
Ya, kembali lagi ke sini kalau ombak itu.
Every resident out here, this is their solution. They throw their trash directly onto the beach.
Paling 5 hari 1 kali. Ya, dikasih timba 2. 1 bulan 10.000 bayar. Lainnya tidak ada yang bayar.
Coba lihat ini.
Apa itu?
Sedotan plastik.
Ini keluar darah.
Yeah. We just showed them a video of a turtle with a straw up its nose so they could really imagine and see for themselves. This is just the beginning. They need to be taught every single day in the classroom, and needs to be way beyond that.
Awesome. Gary, real quick, how's the jet lag? How you feeling today? Dude.
I slept 2 hours last night, but I think it's 2 a.m. in Bali right now.
Perfect. 2 hours of sleep is just enough. Hey, let's go to David at Bureo. David, you came in from Ventura, so thank you for the drive. Thanks for being here. You're converting abandoned nylon fishing nets into materials used by brands like Patagonia, Finisterre. We got to look through your jacket and some of your products last night. So let's take a little look at what Bureo is doing. Very nice. Hopefully RJ's watching so that, because those are great fabrics, that would be great for upholstery in the Rivian, right?
Yeah, thanks, Derek.
You bet. Who we got next? Let's talk about Stoked Plastic. James, Stoked Plastics and Apollos, you're in from Los Angeles, so thank you for being here. You're developing ocean-bound and found rPET, recycled polyethylene terephthalate, material for high-end eyewear and other high-performance injection-molded goods. So I know you've got a video as well, so let's take a look at what you're up to with Stoked Plastics.
When we uncovered this, I was like, this is a gift, it should be shared, right? Because if it's actually working, the people that are most impacted by plastic pollution are going to benefit from it. The planet is going to benefit for it, and in general, our entire kind of human population. One of our PET pellets is 10 times more sustainable than anything else on the market. We're able to take that water bottle found in the ocean landfill and put it back into a new hard good product, a performance hard good product. Ski and snowboard goggles made from water bottle plastic, packaged by a New Earth project, and these are going to be hitting REI shelves this fall. Right? We wanted to make sure that, you know, even though we're using sustainable materials, that we're not sacrificing performance or high quality. And that's what really New Earth Project helps us do. It's just a huge and incredible compliment to like what we've been able to achieve with pulled plastic from the environment, put it into a high-end product, and then have it displayed in such a remarkable, simple, you know, and impactful way. You know, I've spent 5-6 years making sure that the entire supply chain is authentic and transparent, and that every part of it impacts people in a positive way. And that includes who we bring into the fold in terms of the packaging, right, that's associated with it, because we can't introduce any single plastic, you know, packaging, because that goes totally against our ethos, right? So when we met a New Earth Project and Dawn and the rest of the team, it was just a magical kind of thing. You guys totally got it. The mission, the vision, and just the origin of both companies was so symbiotic that it made total sense to work with a company that was so focused on the sustainable movement. And so getting them to be a part of this process has been an extraordinary thing. And I think it just goes to show it completes that circular and authentic supply chain that we've worked so hard to do with it.
Awesome. James, we missed you last night at the Changemaker dinner. Thank you, Co-Summit, for that amazing event last night as well. But because you had an REI deadline last night, how'd it go?
It went well, yeah. We got it out the door.
Out the door?
Yeah,
just in time?
Yeah, just in time. So yeah, thank you. Sorry to miss you guys.
Awesome. Chase, last but of course not least, STEMS, formerly known as ESG Brands. You're out of Portland, Oregon. Thanks for being here. You are a former Nike leader on the Sustainable Innovation team that was leading circularity and next-gen materials. And now you're creating the world's newest natural textile fiber from upcycled agricultural waste. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think there might be a PowerPoint that's going to run behind me.
Oh, good.
We'll key that up. So believe it or not, you can make yarn from the waste from banana plantations. And so what we're doing is we're actually buying stems after banana fruit is harvested, and we turn that into the world's next natural fiber, which is right here. And so, you know, we deeply believe in a world where we can actually focus on food production and make the materials that clothe and kind of propel us forward. The beauty of a banana plant is it's actually like a tulip. So you plant it once, and it regrows for 24 years. And then every time you harvest a bunch of bananas, you actually cut the stem down to the ground. And so we buy that stem which is agricultural waste, and we buy a very specific percentage of it. So we optimize biodiversity and plant health and maintain the farms. And by doing this, we increase revenue at farms by 20%. And we're making use of waste, which literally already exists. And it's good for the planet. It's really good for human health, obviously, with food production. And banana fiber is just kind of the tip of the spear with what we're doing. So
I love that, and it's great, and I love that you touched on health. Wes just brought up health, so we've got like a word bingo. We should have a bingo game here that you can keep track of your words throughout the day. All of you guys, though, I know each of you have commitments to not only doing things for the environment, but looking after people in your communities, in your supply chains, the end result, engaging farmers, whatever it might be. So what I want to ask each of you is talking really about the problem that existed. Gary, I want to start with you. Why was this space ripe for innovation? Sort of what got you into this in the first place? What was the problem you set out to solve?
Yeah, so I grew up in Bali in Indonesia. Indonesia is the biggest archipelago nation in the world, 17,000 islands. And growing up, you could not really look away from plastic. You look left on a rice field and you see plastic. On the beaches, it was literally everywhere. So it's been a 15-year journey of trying to solve this crisis. Really looking at the ocean plastic crisis and focusing on our rivers where 80% of plastics come from. We set up the first barrier with Sungai Watch, Sungai means river, 4 years ago. We would take the trash collected, bring it to the parents' garage. It was very, very, just trying to do what we could. Now we hire 150 people on the island. We run 10 sorting stations with one production facility to turn our plastics into upscale design furniture. So really exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And even watching that video, I know you've been able to really engage the community, and I know there's an opportunity to educate people as well. So the community has really responded well to what you're doing, right?
Yeah, I think that's so much of the core focus. Cleaning up is really a bandage solution. So we're really working with the government, with the communities. Every week we're speaking to 300 students. It's the core focus of changing people's mindsets to really ensure that we can not live in a trash planet.
Yeah, I love that. David, with Bureo, at what point did you stumble upon the fishing net problem? What was your catalyst moment?
Yeah, there's so many people in this room, I think, that have a similar story. Like, I think connecting to everyone on the panel, like just seeing waste in the environment and kind of getting agitated and upset and really being driven by finding a solution for that. I think we came at it from a product design side. So 12 years ago, we were looking at waste on beaches and questioning where that was coming from. And to build quality products from waste material, you need to have like a consistent and quality feedstock. And so the approach was, we can't handle all of this waste and make use of all this mixed plastic, but maybe there's like one specific harmful problem where we could make a difference. And we saw a lot happening with bottles and straws and cigarette butts, packaging, and there's still a lot of solutions that are needed in that space, but fishing nets was one that we didn't see a lot of activity. We heard from fisheries, we heard from NOAA, we heard from nonprofits that it was a huge percentage of waste in the ocean and that it was very harmful to the marine life. And so we set out with the Chilean government in Chile 12 years ago to set up the first collection points on the coast of Chile, and started as a niche skateboard project, just pressing little skateboard decks. Derek, you saw those 10 years ago,
Yeah,
probably?
that's right. Anybody else have a Bureo skateboard?
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
Nice, pretty good. And I think we learned a lot in that process, but the biggest kind of recollection of launching those products was just the abundance of interest in reusing waste as a resource. And fast forward 10 years, I think the biggest reflection on that is that this community and the people that care about the ocean care much more about that future of materials. But in reality, on the production side, like RJ and Wes had a really great talk about this inflection point. Like, they're starting to get to the tipping point of seeing more electric vehicles and the renewable transition. Unfortunately, the plastics industry has gone the other way. So when we started in 2012, it was like just over 250 or 275 million tons of new plastic production every year. Next year, they're forecasting 450 million tons.
Jeez.
And so like the interest and everyone's waking up to wanting to transition, but plastic production is still pumping out virgin plastic. And so I think that we do have hope in that the communities and even the companies that are in this room are waking up to that and wanting to build products from repurposed materials, from new materials, from algae and other mixes. And it really is going to take a portfolio of those solutions to offset this continuing scaling virgin production.
Yeah, and in the end, hopefully we're making our own products from your own inputs as well, right? Keep closing that loop. But right now, James, like you're using an industrial waste, somebody else's waste to put into your products. What was your moment when you saw, I know you were kind of like these guys, starting off in another country, you were doing a lot of traveling, right, some government work, and you said, hey, there's a problem. Tell us about your moment.
Yeah, my aha moment, I was actually, before I founded Stoked Plastics and got Opolis up and running, I was a U.S. government contractor for 12 years living in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa, and my focus was on counter-violence extremism, so terrorism recruitment. And it was during this time of identifying the value chain of violence within these areas that we were kind of identifying that were most at risk for violence and radicalization efforts, that there was a direct correlation between plastic pollution and high recruitment. And for me, as just someone that grew up in the environment, as an environmental advocate, this blew my mind, right? Because this was something that we didn't foresee happening. And because we saw all these interesting trends, but then we started connecting the dots and understanding that Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda were focusing on communities fringed or marginalized living in landfills or villages and towns inundated with plastic pollution because there was no economic livelihood or opportunity. So what they had access to was fast cash, bribes, right? And so, you know, the government works in such a slow way, and we were starting to identify that. But for me, if I can stop that one person I'm talking to today from taking a bribe, it not only prevents them from a violent act, right, but it protects their security, their health, their everything like that. So that's when I really was surprised, and that's when the lever started to turn. I was like, okay, is there a way that I, James Merrill, on the ground in Pakistan, can help this village with this problem now? So what I started using my conflict or hazard pay, so it's an additional income that you make when you're in conflict zones for a period of time with the US government, I started using that money to sponsor environmental campaigns to essentially help these folks understand that plastic can be used as a commodity and that people want this plastic. And so after 3 continents and 10 years of doing this, I actually amassed plastic bottles because for me and all of us, we grew up going to redemption centers, collecting water bottles and soda cans and getting some type of, exchange back. So I ended up moving to Jakarta, Indonesia to study a little bit more about plastic pollution and wanted to use the inventory of plastic that I had in a way that was still serving the communities that supported me and protected me during some gnarly instances. Yeah. And so I started looking in the consumable goods space and looking at how our pet is being used in the marketplace. And then, you look at the soft goods and the threads, and that kind of had been really kind of covered. There was not much innovation in there. And since I'm a gearhead and love product, I was like, okay, what about hard goods, injection molded hard goods that required a standard performance that the outdoor industry demands, right? And so we started looking at sunglasses and ski and snowboard goggles that require flexibility, durability, lightweight. But understanding that during that process of manufacturing, people are only using 3 to 4% of that recycled content into a single new product and calling it fully sustainable. And I was like, this is bullshit, right? But this is where the light bulb went off for me. Like, this is the innovation. This is where we can make an impact. Yeah. And so we started designing and working in the labs to create a blend or a glue that would allow us to use a high percentage of that recycled content or water bottle tech found in the environment and put it back into a product. And that's essentially what's inspired us to
That's cool,
this.
thanks. Yeah. I want to talk to you about scaling up as well and how we all do that for each of you. But I know we've gone from Indonesia to Chile to Pakistan to, where did the banana journey start?
We're in Guatemala. But how do I follow that up? That's a crazy origin story.
Dang.
Top that, Chase.
Yeah. So the first decade of my career, I worked at Columbia Sportswear and Nike. I didn't do that.
Sounds very safe, very easy.
Yeah. So that's crazy. So I worked at Columbia Sportswear and Nike's. I've always been in innovation, and for over a decade, right? People have been looking for longer than that. What comes after cotton, right? Like what could replace cotton? And there have been a lot of attempts, but it always just ends up feeling kind of like a synthetic. And long story short, banana fiber kind of came into my hands, and it was an amazing material. It's like, okay, wow, this feels like cotton. But the issue was there's no industrial supply chain set up. And so the head of ideation and I at the time said, okay, I think this is a viable opportunity. We need to set up a supply chain so we can make banana fibers available for the whole industry, right? This is like, Nike is like 1 billion products a year, right? Let's just figure a t-shirt's like half a pound of cotton. A banana plant, one harvest, when we cut a stem down after, they harvest a banana, that makes a pound of banana fiber. So you get 2 shirts per harvest of fruit. 1 box is a harvest. So there's a lot of bananas out there in the world. And there's enough bananas by volume or available banana fiber in the world to replace cotton today. So that's just the scale. Doesn't mean we're replacing cotton, but that's the kind of the initial idea, right? Is, how do we solve natural fiber problems with natural fiber? It's kind of our origin story. And as we dove into it, we realized that we actually landed on green crude oil. And so, there's a plant that can produce a lot of the materials that we use as humans. And textile grade fiber is the start of what we're doing, but it'd be nice to have above ground carbon supplying a lot of the work that, a lot of the materials that we want to use. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really exciting. There's the apparel industry is waiting for something new and an alternative, right, that has a better footprint and that can do better for us. Gary, you've been doing your company for what you said 15 years. So now as you evolve, for each of you start thinking about this as well. I'm really interested in how do we scale up the work that you're doing? Do you plan to kind of keep it hyper local? But for each of you that have been doing business for a while, what does it take to continue to scale up? How has the innovation process been for you? What's the evolution been like?
Yeah, I think it's almost like we're racing against time when it comes down to plastic pollution. A couple of years ago, every single minute, like a garbage truck of plastic ends up in the ocean. Like just last year, a study just recently came out that 57 million tons of plastic pollution enters the ocean. That's basically Central Park at the height of the Empire State Building. Visualize that for a second, just going into the ocean every second. So there needs to be intense scale-up actions going on. For us, we're out in Indonesia on the field, wading through rivers, literally, like imagine this room covered in plastic where you're trying to wade through it, collect it with your bare hands, engaging community, but really feeling, you come back the next day to that same river to realize that it's still choking in plastic. So obviously we need to scale. We're actually scaling right now to Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia, and Surabaya, the second biggest city. It's going to be sort of a big test for us to see how we can scale the actions, the technologies that we've developed to clean rivers, and see, from there, it's the first time that we'll have to take a plane ride from Bali. So from an operational perspective, learning so much. But the dream is really to scale this, to the Philippines, Colombia, anywhere that has really a problem.
Yeah, just that mass amount of volume, though, just is crazy and hard to get your head around how we can even process all of that. David, I would imagine when you first started with fishing nets, those are big and heavy as well. How have you gone from that first time you saw this and said, we can do something with this, to now collecting enough nets to be making fabric for the apparel industry?
Yeah, I think in the beginning when we started, that was like, the concern was like, okay, we're going to design products based on a waste stream, and then we're going to run out of that waste, and what are we going to do? And the more that we've learned about production, even in our little niche area of fishing nets, it's consumable, right? So like apparel or like vehicles, like these nets wear out, they get old, and then they're retired. And like, I honestly think that there's a business model in almost every industry for someone looking at waste streams. And like, for us, that's not how we're gonna grow, because we have equipment and teams and know-how and relationships built around the fisheries. So we've realized through like 12 years now that these fisheries, they're often in areas where there's not a lot of resources. Unlike the bottle system, they don't have a lot of incentivized programs to recycle them. They're large, they're dirty, they have everything from from sand and salt, difficult to recycle. If we're gonna make a difference, we should just focus on that. And that path has brought us from a really small company of doing truckloads of material, about 50 tons, or about 100,000 pounds the first year. Last year, we recycled about 1,500 pounds, or over 3 million pounds of material. And we're still just scratching the surface. Like, the fishing industry is generating over 500,000 tons a year of waste. And so, like, certainly, like, as far as scale, we're not gonna grow 500 times in the next 3 years. Like, I really appreciated the talk this morning from Wes and RJ, because they realize these transitions take decades. And there are people that think we can just go from virgin to recycled or virgin to bio in like 3 to 5 years. Realistically, we need to set realistic targets and just start making incremental progress. So for us, that looks like, how do we get to 5,000 tons and then 10,000 tons over a 5 or a 10-year period and start replacing the use of virgin material? And it's certainly not gonna be us, or not gonna be just these companies on stage. It's gonna take a lot of different business models, all focused on replacing the virgin material, to kind of start seeing that plastics industry have a negative growth. And I think we'll start seeing change when we can look at those constant production curves and see the alternative materials offsetting the virgin material.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are abandoned fishing nets all over the world, right? So you've got to chase those down and build a supply chain and build infrastructure to get them all back and process them through your warehouse, right? Yep. James, for you, I mean, is there a hope though that you run out of material, so that, do you work, hope we work you out of business, or is chances are you're going to be making goggles and eyewear for a long time out of recycled plastic bottles?
Yeah, well, my investors would not want me to say this, but yeah, hopefully we'll put ourselves
Between us.
out of business. But the reality of the situation is that, just like everybody on this panel is saying, is that, if the fossil fuel taps stopped today, right, which it won't, there still leaves around 350 billion water bottles in the environment. Right, that could circle the Earth around 5 times, right? So there's just a massive amount of waste, but material for us to use. And so really the scaling in the waste stream, like Dave and Gary and everyone is saying, it's a unified effort really to streamline this process with the goal to at least start the steps, to get to a place where this is just part of the process now, right? So for us, we essentially, the goal that I have in my head, probably not in my lifetime, is that all plastic things are no longer made from virgin plastic. They're no longer made from petroleum-based things. They're made from what's pulled from the environment, or new biotech or polyester that's coming into place in technology. That's honestly the dream. But for us, getting certain manufacturers all over the world certified in these type of practices, I think is the best way forward until we can figure out how to do that. Honestly, the United States produces, I think, the most plastic pollution waste in the world, right? And our goal is to not only stop using plastic that extracted from the developing world, but it's stopping our plastic from leaving our shores. So, helping that infrastructure of recycling really kind of stay true to what the whole point of it is actually supposed to be. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of where we're hoping and headed for.
Yeah, and for each of you as disruptors in your marketplace, I mean, I want to talk a little bit about the marketplace, and how has, for you, Chase, you come into the market and say, hey, I want to replace your t-shirts with banana fiber. What's the response like, and what are some of the barriers that you're running up against? Is it cost? Is it people are like, I'm just not willing to change? Talk to us about it.
Yeah, well, we're very much a startup, and so scale is kind of our next horizon, right? It is our horizon, and so the biggest thing, right, is, hey, can you send us a bale of banana fiber so we can start making yarns? And we can't move fast enough to be able to do that. But even before that, like we're making non-wovens, right? So the natural fibers, as waste product from a banana plantation, the really cool thing about bast fibers is nature's already created a fiber and has pumped it full of all of these amazing qualities. And so our technology, it's really good at tuning kind of like what grade of fiber do you want. And the very first one is, hey, here's a really good fiber for non-wovens, and it has amazing properties that you're going to want in your vehicles or in upholstery, whatever it may be. And so bringing cash flow early on, non-wovens is doing that for us. Being able to scale up yarn, that is our next horizon. And so, it's really being able to find those brand partners who want to run those early trial programs, right, and build with you. At the brands that I worked at previously, we did that all day, right? Purchase orders to say, hey, let's try this, right? It may take 6 months, a year, but we're going to try it.
And you probably know better just than anybody, what about cost and price? Are you able to deliver a similar product at the price they need? I mean, you're going to know exactly where they need to land on that, right?
Yeah, so when I was at my brand before this, I would review next generation materials based on impact, economics, and performance. And so when we developed our business plan and the technology, we knew what our customer wanted. And so the technology we have follows the 12 principles of green chemistry, so it's really safe. And the business model that we have, and combined with the technology, the target is to be able to price under organic cotton. And we have to see kind of where the market, wants to see pricing.
Yeah.
But we have a significant opportunity to be able to meet virgin cotton at scale as we grow. And we've been doing banana fiber for 4 years, and every year we just keep getting surprised at how it just keeps making sense.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to break my pattern here. So James, back to you. With your goggles, same question, I think, cost and price. You've got REI who's willing to put them on the shelf. Did you kind of have to prove, testing and quality and say, hey, these are just as good, the price is the same, or is it a premium product that does cost a little bit more?
Yeah, I suppose we're in the middle of the market. We're competitive with most of the brands out there in terms of what Stoked Plastics is doing for our subsidiary Opolis in the goggle industry and the sunglasses. But for us, it was really important to create a product that performed well. Right, and it just so happened to be made out of sustainable materials, because we wanted to show the marketplace and our consumers is that you don't have to sacrifice performance by using sustainable materials. I just think that is something that needs to kind of be spoken about a little bit more, is that there doesn't have to be a high price tag when it comes to using sustainable materials if in fact your supply chain is working in the way in which you hope it would and you're overseeing. So in terms of that, it's in the middle of the marketplace, but as Chase was saying too, when we're introducing the rPET pellet to bigger brands in the outdoor space, as my COO, Casey Wallace, will say, we have to have a presentation for the CFO. We have to have a presentation for the CMO. We have to have a presentations for everybody that's part of the decision making. So when they're seeing this, it's a really easy decision to make, right? Yeah. And so that's kind of, I think, what we're trying to push for and maintain at this point.
David, how about for you? I see you nodding your head. Same thing. Do you get pushback, or what's that pushback based on?
Yeah, I mean, the question of cost across material or even providers and how they're collecting, it varies dramatically. So I can't speak for everyone, but for us in kind of scaling the program, I can break down the implicit bias that this unicorn that recycled feedstock is going to be less than virgin at this point in time is not possible. Like there are subsidies, there's scale, there's efficiencies that you get in basically extracting fossil fuels and making virgin plastics, that if you're going to pay people fairly, you're going to transport that material, you're going to process it, and you're going to put it into a new supply chain that you unfortunately can't compete with. But that doesn't mean that it has to be at a price that will make it unaffordable for everyone looking at it. If you can be within a certain percentage point, and this is something that we're testing in the apparel market right now, and the brands are committed to that, and they want to tell the story, they want to be able to charge a little bit more for products, it is economical. Like we've scaled with a single brand partner from 5 tons to 1,000 tons. And we couldn't do that if it wasn't economical. And, and in the apparel space right now, I would argue if you're an apparel company and your whole margin is based on virgin polyester, you're 5 years behind. Because even Nike is looking at portfolios of responsible materials and where they're coming from, and they're planning how they're going to make this transition, because they know, and the other large players know, they can't keep relying on cheap virgin plastic to put into the market. And for us, we're so focused on apparel right now because nylon in particular, in outerwear and waterproof and performance wear, 98% of the market's virgin. So even though we're all talking about recycled and everyone understands this is what we need, like 5 million tons of material is made every year, and 98% of it is just from an extractive process. And so for us, like, we're having the conversations with the companies and helping them understand it doesn't have to be cost prohibitive. We need to break down the implicit bias that you can't do this because it's expensive, you can't do it because the quality's not there. We can get over with design and performance of those materials. You can design products and vehicles and clothing to utilize waste, and you can do it in a way that is not too cost prohibitive for the market. And that really is the future, because if we don't do that and you're relying on virgin plastic, we're not headed towards a great end there.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned, storytelling, how important that is. So once brands go through that exercise, and it can be tough, right, to adopt new materials, to throw your weight behind it, but you've got to then be able to tell your story in the right way so that you can tell your customers and stakeholders why these products are so good and why they're better and why they might cost more.
And we're seeing that, right, as the younger generation. We had a discussion last night at dinner, like, kids give a lot of hope, right? And like, they pick up these things, and you tell a kid, hey, your t-shirt's going to be made from the banana peel that you just threw out.
The trunk of the banana plant.
Yeah, the trunk, the trunk. Or like, for us, like, being able to tell a kid the story and then having them go take that story, it's really important. It's like what happened in food. Like, we got to tour the Ecology Center last night, to walk around that venue and sit down and eat a meal knowing where the material came from. It matters, and you care about it, and you're going to remember that. And if we do that in the way that we build products, that's how we're going to make a difference.
Yeah, people are stoked on that. They want to hear the story.
If I can add to that,
yeah,
right?
please.
We talk about this all the time. Like, it's no longer just quality product, right? Like, consumers really care about, it's like quality of product and quality of business. That is how the consumer reviews whatever they're going to spend their dollar on. And so it's it's cool being up here with these brands and these material providers, because it's we're the ones who are helping the larger brands be able to be that good company, in the face of, you guys are direct to consumer as well, right? So.
I think you hit on that, though. I mean, and I think we're hearing that over and over, right? I've been working in sustainability for a while, and in the early days, it was because it felt good, it was the right thing to do, and it was like, come on, everybody should get on board. But today, I think we're at this point where it's like, it just has to make good business sense. So you have to be able to come into your customers or your suppliers or whoever it might be, saying, we've got a great product that's going to perform, we can meet the market price, but you're going to have a great story here that's going to help drive sales. You want to add to that?
I was just going to say, I would argue that, look at the regulation that's happening for products. I think that if you're just dependent on virgin plastic, you have a bigger risk in your supply chain, your business, than if you're starting to look ahead. And it's not just one material, it's a portfolio that they need. So I think that gives us hope amongst all the negativity on what's happened with production and climate. Like, the same reason that we reflected earlier about that inflection point, the same is true for the products that we're building.
Yeah.
And if I can add another thing to this, right? If you think about big brands or brands who are bringing in, next generation materials, this happened to me all the time at my previous brand. If we would bring a new material in, the first thing they asked is, okay, where's the diversification of that supply chain? I'm not going to scale with one brand, because what if they fail? Right. Now we have a whole line that we can't replace. And so, everyone here, you can all create, if you're inspired, you can create new companies, based on what's being done today. There needs to be a diversification of companies that are forming that are all doing this.
That's right. Yeah, making an ecosystem. Gary, you want to add to that?
Yeah. So earlier this year, we were sitting on mountains of trash piles. We launched Sungai Design, which is a new sort of social enterprise to recycle the lowest value plastics. So we started with plastic bags. The film plastic, they're about 37% of what we collect. So we developed a full system in-house to upcycle that into sheets, to then CNC cut into furniture. So it's like the first furniture that's coming out 100% from river plastic, the dirtiest type of plastic out there. And we're selling it, our first chair, lounger chair, from 2,000 bags, and we can track literally what river it comes from. We have a stool that's made from 500 bags. But that story, we launched in March. First video we put out gets 300 million views. First week we sell 400 chairs online. Wow. We can only make 2 chairs a week.
Wow.
And I think that's
supply and demand.
That's one of the issues, is that you have these great ideas, you innovate, but very similar to the innovators here, the production doesn't meet. So we need to scale as fast as possible and push that fast forward button.
Yeah, that's good. And the plastic that you're getting is from the river. A lot of it we know it can be ocean bound, or maybe it's collected upstream, but you're pulling from the river and then turning that into your furniture.
It's like, thick mud, mangrove plastic that needs to be washed. So we've had to develop, similar to Bureo, our own washing lines, shredding lines, extruding lines to ensure that we can give that plastic a second life.
That's crazy. So we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to ask each of you, I just want to get a sense of, that feels like a win, like kind of a peak moment in your organization. But for each of you, what was, maybe it was getting into REI or other, but I'm interested in sort of either that big peak win moment for you, or sort of your future, your outlook in this space, or sort of this future. So who wants to take that first?
Honestly, personally, one of my first big wins was being able to kind of collect a bunch of co-founders who wanted to do this all together. Because at the end of the day, it's a team, right? Investors are investing in the team. We got Fred Dennis back there, our COO. Team was the first one. Second, I would say, just getting recognition within Guatemala, understanding that, okay, we can gather all of the industrial banana farms in Guatemala to say, okay, yeah, we'll buy your waste, and we're all in this together to build a really big natural fiber industry. Check that box. And then getting recognition with USAID and IDB is kind of like a World Bank to say, okay, yeah, we're investing in this because this is a next generation natural fiber. And so it's just these compounding efforts of validation that startups are really hard. And so they're really hard. So just having that, keeps us going.
Awesome. James?
I think the biggest win for me was essentially developing this material, right? Getting it out of the lab, seeing the high percentage of recycled content. We're surpassing 50% recycled content in a single plastic pellet now, and getting higher results. I think for that, it was just an idea, and I'm not a chemist by any means. Ashish Lamba is our chief scientist officer, and he was able to develop this within 4 years. And so for us then to take that plastic, then apply it, create a product, launching it in the market, and then getting recognized in REI, LL Bean, and other places was a huge validation. But not only that, competitors not only in the eye space, but now we're developing a cooler for one of the biggest cooler brands out there, right? We're doing stuff for like footwear, shoe wear, and it's growing and growing, and we're kind of getting to a point where we can no longer satisfy that demand because it's becoming so exciting. But I think those are the 3 biggest wins for us, and not only that, but just I'm a fanboy up here and with people in the audience in general, and for me to come from the U.S. government and to kind of be embraced by the outdoor industry and to kind of look up to these guys has been like a beautiful moment for me. So it's been really nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
David, how about you?
Yeah, this is our 12th year, so I feel like we've had like many of those moments, so I'll try to put it in perspective. But yeah, I think very similar. Like, just in the beginning, it was doing it because we cared and finding people that cared as much as we do. And so I feel very thankful. Our team is 42 people now, spread out globally. A lot of them are working in the facilities collecting, and we get to work with an incredible group of people that just care. And so that team, to me, means a lot. And on the market side, yeah, the validation of like, we were building skateboards in a garage and, weren't making much of a reach, and got the notice of some of the largest brands that are making consumer goods. And to be able to work through years and years of R&D to get a project into a product that's launched, and for them to tell the story about, yeah, that used to be fishing nets, or that was collected in Chile or Peru or Ecuador, and this is how it works. This is why we're doing this, and not extracting oil and processing it into plastic, is just a huge moment for our team, and to be able to scale that. I mean, even in this room, you know, Finisterre and Patagonia and Florence is here, and some of the partners that we have been working with, for them to have the confidence and say, yeah, this works and we're going to do it, it just means a lot and really sets the tone for the rest of the industry. Certainly in our space now, like the largest apparel producers are still largely based on virgin plastic. But we do have hope now that it's going to take these companies to come out and show that this works, and we're going to do it, and we're going to take some market share, and we're going to change the way products are made.
Yeah, how about, thank you for that. That's great. And I think we're at time here, but I want to just, if I can, from you get a last statement, sort of a call to action for the audience or anybody that watches or listens to this. What do you want people to either do or know, or, you know, what's their next step?
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all start by reducing our plastic footprint by looking at our fridges. There probably is an item there that you can avoid the next time you go to the supermarket. So look at your fridge when you come back today and see where you can start reducing.
Nice. David?
I would say just think about where your products come from, do your research, see how they're paying the employees, see where they're getting materials, and use those dollars wisely.
Vote with your dollar. Nice. James?
Yeah, just holding yourself, your village, your town, your local politics, your government accountable for a lot of these changes that can be made, because that's the only way forward, in my opinion.
Love it. So, yeah, there we go. Chase, bring it home.
I would just say, every time you look at a banana, just think, hey, do I want to be wearing clothes that help provide that, or just cotton?
I love it. Round of applause for our disruptors and innovators. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, everyone.